My wife and I were reincarnated back to the day of our wedding, facing all the people below. She unhesitatingly rushed into the arms of another man and flew away with him. I was left standing there, helpless on the stage. Years later, she became the principal dancer of a renowned ballet troupe, walking proudly with him, mocking me upon her return. Jack, do you see? My achievements now are something you'll never reach in your life. I didn't respond. Instead, I turned and wrapped my arm around the granddaughter of the world's wealthiest tycoon, who was also a famous dance instructor, and left. She was left behind, screaming in despair, "You bastard, let him go. Jack is my husband." Chapter 1. On the day I got engaged to April, my wife from my previous life, Laura, returned. She was accompanied by the men she had left with back then. April was still upstairs getting ready, so I went downstairs to greet the old classmates who had arrived. "Hey, who's this? Isn't this our top campus heartthrob, Jack Lynn?" Before I even reached them, I heard someone mockingly sneer, "What a stinky fly. Heard Laura's back in the country, so you rushed over here without a second thought." Hearing those words, the smile I had on my face quickly faded. Laura, when did she return? I looked up in the direction of the voice, and Laura, who once wore light makeup and simple clothes, seemed to have become a completely different person. Her features were now exquisite, dressed in a haute couture gown, and her expression conveyed an air of superiority, as if she were a queen inspecting her subjects. "Lynn, our big campus heartthrob, long time no see," Laura said with a smile, linking her arm with the men beside her. "How have you been all these years? Probably not too well. Otherwise, you wouldn't have rushed over as soon as you heard I was back. After so many years." She was still as arrogant as ever. "Such a pity though. I'm getting along really well with Eric now. You have no chance." As she said this, Eric smugly pulled Laura closer into his embrace. "You still have to thank the campus heartthrob. If it weren't for you forcing me to marry Laura back then, I wouldn't have realized how much I love her. I really owe you a lot." If I still had mixed feelings about Laura before, after she coldly ran away from our wedding, I felt nothing for her anymore. Seeing them like this, I just nodded and smiled to greet them, not wanting to get too involved. Today was my engagement day with April, and I didn't want to waste any more time on these people. But to my surprise, my moment of tolerance only led to them getting more brazen. "What are you acting all high and mighty for?" Eric's face darkened at my indifferent attitude. One of his sycophants quickly stepped forward to grab my arm. "Jack, are you not hearing us talk?" I was unable to move as they grabbed my sleeve, and I tried to suppress my anger while staring at them. "Today's a joyous occasion, and I don't want to make a scene. If you're here to attend the party, I welcome you. But if you're here to cause trouble, please leave now." My stern voice startled them. By the time they realized what had happened, their faces turned red with rage. "What are you, sneaking in here somehow, and now acting like the host? Exactly. What status does the Liu family have? And what are you? Do you think you even belong in a gathering like this?" I glanced at the time and noticed that the engagement ceremony was about to begin, and I didn't have time to keep arguing with these people. So, I spoke in a deep voice. "Let go of me." "Whoa, whoa, whoa, are you mad now?" Seeing this, Laura, still holding onto Eric, came forward with a mocking smile. "Jack, I'm not saying this to be cruel, but when I left you for Eric, it was because I couldn't stand your weak and cowardly demeanor. I know you have deep feelings for me, but you're just not good enough for me. Don't let the security come in and drag you out later. It would be so embarrassing. You might as well leave now and save yourself some face." Laura repeatedly poked my chest with her bright red nails. Afterward, she wiped her hand in disgust, as if she had touched something filthy. Seeing her act like this, I could only feel bewilderment. "Laura, you were the one who ran away from the wedding to follow another man, and now you're flaunting it as if it's something to be proud of. Don't you feel ashamed?" Laura's smile froze on her face, and Eric stepped in front of her, adopting a protective stance. Before he could speak, I turned to him. "And you, a man who eagerly plays the third wheel, don't you feel embarrassed? Now you're out here parading around. How shameless can you be?" Laura and Eric both turned pale at my words. I didn't want to escalate things, but they were being persistent and even delaying my engagement ceremony with April. With no other choice, I decided to end this quickly. "Let go of me now, and I'll pretend nothing happened." But, before I could say another word, a glass of red wine was poured over my head. "Jack, you're the one who's shameless. Eric and I are true love. Don't you dare slander us." In a fit of fury, Laura grabbed a glass of red wine from the side and poured it over my head. In an instant, the red liquid blurred my vision. "I'll tell you, I'm not letting go today. When Liu comes out, I'll let her deal with you." This pretentious hypocrite. Through the sticky liquid, I looked at Laura's twisted face, and all I could feel was a sense of despair. We had been married for 20 years in our past life, and now she was treating me like this. I was allergic to red wine, and she always knew that. April had made sure that red wine wouldn't be served at this event. But still, an accident had happened. Chapter 2. Laura and I fell in love in college, and in our previous life, we got married right after graduating. After we married, she was always dissatisfied with my lack of ambition, and after our daughter was born, she even wanted to divorce me. The reason? Her childhood sweetheart had, by chance, skyrocketed to success and became a business tycoon, while I remained just a small employee in a company. Jack, rejecting Eric and choosing you was the biggest mistake of my life. Those years, Laura and I fought almost every day. She was always thinking about Eric. When she saw our daughter, she looked at her with disgust. You're just like your father. You'll both die a miserable death one day. Her harsh, venomous words scared our young daughter, who started crying loudly. My in-laws couldn't stand it anymore and tried to intervene, but in the midst of the argument, Laura pushed her own parents down the stairs. One died. One was injured. To escape responsibility, Laura bought a plane ticket overnight and tried to run to Eric's embrace, but on her way to the airport, she had a car accident. Afterward, we all reincarnated and found ourselves back at the wedding ceremony. I was an orphan, without parents. The only thing I was concerned about after being reincarnated was my daughter. She was still so young. What would happen to her? Before I could fully grasp the situation, Laura, who had reincarnated with me, grabbed the microphone and began delivering a fiery speech. Then, like a butterfly, she flitted into Eric's arms, leaving me alone to face the questioning and mocking stares of the others. It felt like a heavy stone was pressing on my chest, and slowly, I started to feel like I couldn't breathe. Hey, what's going on here? Playing sick now? You think pretending to be ill will let you stay here? I'll tell you, don't flatter yourself. I'm going to let everyone see your filthy side. Then, Eric let go of Laura's hand and walked into the hall, shouting loudly, everyone, come look. There's a pathetic lapdog trying to sneak into the Liu family's banquet. Who knows what he's up to? Ha ha ha. Our Lin heartthrob isn't bad looking. Of course, he's here to snag a rich girl from high society. Why work for 20 more years when you can just show up here? With their mocking laughter, more and more people gathered around to watch. I tried to endure the difficulty breathing, wanting to escape from this place. Today was my engagement day with April. For this day, April had waited for me for 8 years, and I couldn't let these trash ruin it. Where do you think you're going? Isn't he the campus heartthrob? Let's see him. Let everyone take a look and see if any rich young lady will find him interesting. He sure went through a lot of trouble just to get in here. I was pushed off balance and almost fell to the ground. Who's this? What's going on? Yeah, how could someone like this be at a banquet of this level? He looks a little familiar. Some people began to ask questions, even wanting to lift my head to get a better look at my face. I hurriedly tried to hide. I wanted to give April a memorable engagement banquet, but not like this. I didn't want anyone to think that the Liu family's daughter was marrying a worthless man. But now, my mind was starting to blur. I regretted it all. If I had known, I shouldn't have come down to greet them. These trash didn't deserve it. What are you hiding for? What's the matter? Are you so grateful to us for giving you such fine wine? You poor thing. You don't need to thank us so much. After all, if it weren't for this, you probably wouldn't have ever seen this kind of high-class stuff in your life. Eric stood in front of me, smugly kicking me as he spoke nonchalantly. Now that you've had the wine, and embarrassed yourself completely, just hurry up and leave. Otherwise, once the ceremony starts and you ruin Liu's family's mood, there won't be any good for you. Laura stood gracefully in front of me, looking down at me as if I were an ant. Fortunately. What did she mean by fortunately? Fortunately, she ran away from the wedding. Or was she glad she had another chance at life? I wanted to retort, but I had no strength left. Where is Mr. Lin? I can't find him. The ceremony is about to begin. Just when I was at my wit's end, I heard a servant's anxious voice. Dad, have you seen Jack? April's worried voice followed. Why are there so many people here? What's going on? The sound of high heels clicking on the floor grew closer, and through the crowd, I finally saw a panicked face. Jack, what happened to you? Chapter 3. April rushed through the crowd and collapsed into my arms, her beautiful eyes filled with panic and concern. Honey, what happened? Don't scare me, please. Her frantic words made Eric and Laura go pale. Laura stiffly took a step forward. Junior Liu, are you mistaken? How could she be your husband? This clearly. Before she could finish speaking, April's sharp gaze locked onto Laura. I know you, Laura, right? Upon hearing April mention she knew her, Laura's face lit up with joy. Before she could get excited, April's icy voice interrupted her. I remember the Liu family didn't send you an invitation. How did you get in here? Before Laura could explain, April's cold voice interrupted again. We'll talk about your situation later, but let me tell you, if anything happens to my husband today, no one here will get away with it, especially you, Eric and Laura. April's words made them break out in cold sweat. Miss Liu, this is all a misunderstanding. We weren't aware of anything. Seeing this, The people who had been gossiping and watching immediately came forward to intervene, but they were quickly restrained by bodyguards. "Miss, the doctor has arrived." I was carried to a nearby lounge by the servants. "Doctor, how is my husband?" With no outsiders present, April finally dropped her protective guard. Her eyes reddened as she trembled. "Miss Liu, don't worry. Mr. Lin just had an allergic reaction. His condition is under control now. But if you had arrived any later, or if Miss Liu hadn't arrived in time, things could have been much worse." As the doctor administered treatment, I slowly regained consciousness. Then, April, her nose red, collapsed into my arms. "Woo, honey, how are you? Are you okay? You almost scared me to death just now." Woo. Seeing her cling to me, I felt my heart soften completely. "Don't worry, I'm fine." I propped myself up and pulled April into an embrace. "Honey, what happened? You were just supposed to greet them. How did it turn into this?" Looking at April's angry face, I let out a bitter laugh and slowly recounted the events. "Well, they're going too far. I'll make them pay for this." April, furious, clenched her fists and was about to storm out, but I stopped her. "April, don't be angry. We can't deal with them directly. What if someone says we're using our power to bully them?" Upon hearing this, April's face flushed. "They were the ones bullying you. They even ruined our engagement banquet. I won't let them get away with it." I held April and comforted her, while in the place she couldn't see, a dark glint flashed in my eyes. "The most important thing right now is to find out where that bottle of red wine came from. Wasn't red wine not allowed at the banquet?" I wrapped my arm around April and returned to the scene of the incident. When I stepped out, Eric and Laura both sighed in relief. "See, I told you there was nothing to worry about. It's fine now." Eric's face eased a little, and he took Laura's hand again. Then he lifted his chin slightly. "Jack, since you're fine, why don't you let these people go?" I sat down with April and leisurely replied, "Let them go. No rush. The most important thing now is to find out where that bottle of red wine came from. The entire banquet prohibited red wine. So how did it end up here? Besides, the only person who knew I was allergic to red wine was Laura. I don't think this was just an accident. Maybe it was an attempted murder." I smiled faintly, scanning the faces of everyone present. Upon hearing this, Laura's face turned red with anger, and she began to curse loudly. "Jack, are you crazy? Do you think you're some kind of president of a country, trying to claim it was an attempted murder? With your worthless life, I wouldn't even want it. Stop flattering yourself. What nonsense are you talking?" Hearing Laura's harsh words, April couldn't help but stand up and shout back. "Who gave you the right to talk about my husband like that? Laura, don't you know basic manners?" When April spoke, Laura immediately became meek and didn't dare to make a sound. "Well, Miss Liu, this bottle of red wine was already here when we arrived. We don't know what happened." Seeing Laura being scolded, Eric immediately fell silent and subtly moved to the side, keeping a safe distance from her. "Is that so?" April was clearly dissatisfied with this explanation, her cold face showing a sneer. "So, according to you, the responsibility lies with us. Are you saying the Liu family servants are irresponsible?" Hearing the words from their own young lady, the Liu family servants were immediately frightened and hurriedly begged for mercy. "Miss, it really wasn't our fault." "Yes, miss, although we didn't know why red wine wasn't allowed. We did our best to follow the instructions." While they were at a standoff, I slowly scanned everyone's faces. I spoke softly. "The house has security cameras. Since that's the case, to be fair, let's check the surveillance footage. The truth will come out." Upon hearing this, the old classmates suddenly had their pupils shrink. "No, there's no need. It's not a big deal." Laura and Eric both broke out in cold sweat. "Not a big deal? My husband almost died because of this, and you're telling me it's not a big deal?" "I'm telling you plainly, even if red wine were allowed in our Liu family, we wouldn't have such low-quality stuff here. Now that the truth is clear, the problem lies with you people. Checking the footage is just to clarify things." Chapter 4. The group nervously followed to the surveillance room. During this time, Laura wanted to speak several times but was stopped by Eric each time. "Brother Eric, can we bring red wine to a banquet like this?" The screen displayed Eric and Laura whispering at the manor's entrance. The conversation went like this. "What's the big deal? We're not bringing the red wine to show off to those upper-class people. We'll just put it in front of those country bumpkins who've never seen the world. They'll be easily fooled. Then, isn't it a waste to let these trash drink such good wine?" In the 4K ultra-high-definition footage, Laura's expression of distress was unmistakable. "Are you stupid? I've already switched out the real wine. This is just some cheap stuff I got from the wholesale market for $3. Think about it. With just $3, we can get everyone to praise us. Isn't that a much better deal?" Seeing Laura still hesitating, Eric gritted his teeth and made a final push. "Besides, all our classmates are coming to this banquet. I'm not sure if Jack will show up. If he does, don't you want him to know you're doing better than him?" Upon hearing this, the once hesitant Laura immediately became resolute. From here on, the events that had just unfolded in the hall played out on the screen. As April watched, her expression darkened further. Everyone was too afraid to speak, the atmosphere heavy with tension. Only Eric, trembling, reached out to grab my sleeve. "Jack, Mr. Lin, please, have mercy on us. Let us go this time." And it wasn't really dangerous, right? Looking at their shameless faces, I turned my gaze to the stiff Laura. At this moment, she no longer had that superior, arrogant demeanor. Her eyes were now filled with guilt as she silently avoided my gaze. Seeing this, I let out a subtle, mocking laugh. "Is that so? The doctor said that the reason I didn't suffer major harm was because the wine was so bad that it didn't trigger a severe allergic reaction like real red wine would." At this point, everyone recalled what Eric had said earlier in the footage. "Hey, didn't you say this was some imported fine wine? The kind you can't buy with money, specially brought here for us to try? Yeah, you're just pretending to be rich. Are you really trying to impress us with $3 worth of cheap crap?" The people who had been conspiring with Eric against me were now suddenly changing sides, glaring at Eric and Laura. Exactly. When a real man brings wine to a private dinner, it shows loyalty and understanding. But what are you doing at this banquet, bringing this kind of trash? Aren't you ashamed? One by one, the people spoke, making Eric's face turn beet red. I, he stuttered, not knowing what to say. His eyes landed on April and me, holding hands, and his face immediately lit up with delight. "Lin brother, Junior Lou, by the way, you should thank me. If I hadn't taken Laura away back then, how would you have ended up together? It's because of me that you have this great match." Hearing his shameless words, both April and I were left speechless in astonishment. Even Laura's eyes reddened. "Eric, what are you talking about?" Furious, Laura threw her handbag at Eric, but he shoved her to the ground. "I worked hard to get you this bag and dress. Do you think I did all this for you to ruin them? Do you know if they get damaged, we can't return them? It's 3 times the compensation, you idiot." Eric hurriedly caught the bag, carefully blowing on it as if it would miraculously fix any damage. The actions of these two were repeatedly shocking us. Maybe it was the sharpness of our gazes that hurt Laura's pride. She collapsed on the floor, her face contorted with fury as she glared at me. "Jack, what's there to be so proud of? At least I worked hard to get somewhere. What about you? You're just a man who climbed up by relying on a woman. You're a kept man." As soon as these words were spoken, the atmosphere in the surveillance room reached a freezing point. Even April stared at me nervously. "Jack, don't listen to them." They all held their breath, seemingly afraid I might get angry, but I simply smiled indifferently. "I originally wanted to announce this at the banquet tonight, but I guess I'll just say it now." I gently patted April's back, comforting her. To be worthy of April, to have a status that matches hers, I've worked my ass off these years. I can't say I didn't rely on the Liu family's power at all, but the success I have now is built step by step, through my own hard work. With that, I revealed that I was the current CEO of the rapidly rising Spring Group. Yes, I used April's name to found the group now under my ownership. I looked affectionately at April, who was now stunned. "Also, tonight, I will announce that I'm transferring all my shares to April. She will be the true shareholder of the company. From now on, I'll just be working for April." Everyone in the room was dumbfounded, and April looked utterly confused. "Ha, I knew it. Lin brother is definitely not that kind of man who depends on others." After the shock wore off, the people who had been mocking me immediately changed their tone, flattering me and trying to get on my good side. "Lin brother is truly a man of great achievement." "Ha, exactly. Miss Liu and Mr. Lin are a perfect match." Laura, completely frantic, grabbed at my pants leg. "Jack, you must be lying. You're just trying to fool everyone. When you were with me, you never talked about being a boss or running any company. So how did you become so successful just because you're with her?" Laura's eyes burned with intense resentment. Since being reborn, Laura had been striving to climb higher, as if this would prove that leaving me was the right choice. I withdrew my gaze and walked forward indifferently. "Because you don't deserve it," Laura screamed behind me, and the people around me quickly handed me business cards, bowing and flattering me. But deep down, I knew the truth. It wasn't just because of me. My abilities were limited, and if it weren't for April's help with the Liu family, I wouldn't have achieved all this. The situation now was something we created together. I lovingly kissed April on the forehead, changed into a different outfit, and continued with our engagement ceremony. Chapter 5. Since the engagement ceremony ended and my true identity was revealed, many people who had previously looked down on me after Laura's runaway marriage, and those who had tried to take advantage of my situation, suddenly rushed to get closer to me, but I didn't mind. After all the struggles, April and I had finally gotten to this point. All I wanted now was to cherish the time we had together. When Laura ran away from the wedding, and after I had just been reborn, I fell into a deep state of confusion. It was April, her face flushed red, who found me. "Jack, Senior Lin, if you don't mind, I can complete this wedding ceremony with you." Then April went on to confess her feelings to me, expressing how much she liked me. At that moment, I was overwhelmed by the shock, my mind fuzzy, but I still firmly rejected her offer. Let's not even talk about how I couldn't marry a girl I didn't like. Even if I did like her, I wouldn't want her to deal with this mess with me at such a time. I wanted to sort myself out, rise to the level where I could stand beside her, and then propose to her properly in the open. After that, I dedicated myself to building my career. I knew that April was secretly helping me, not wanting me to find out. I could only smile bitterly, because in this land where every inch of land is precious, if it weren't for the Liu family's protection, I wouldn't have come this far. Thankfully, everything was perfect now. Darling, you're back. After the engagement, April and I began to live together openly. Today, April came back, the scent of alcohol wafting from her. You've been drinking. I quickly caught her as she staggered, clearly drunk. Jack, you big bad guy. Hearing her slurred complaints, I couldn't help but laugh helplessly. What's wrong? April, what did I do wrong? Tell me, do you still like your ex-girlfriend? April's eyes were filled with a growing sense of grievance and worry. Upon hearing those words, I couldn't help but chuckle. How could that be? I've had nothing to do with her for a long time. Over the years, almost every time April got drunk, she would ask me, with a pitiful tone, if I still liked Laura. I knew the insecurity deep down in her heart, so I responded repeatedly. Making April feel insecure was my fault, but there would be many more days ahead. I would show April with my actions, again and again, how much I love her. Extra, I am April, and I am Jack's fiancée, but now, I should officially be called his wife. Because today, we got married. Our meeting happened during college. Jack is 2 years older than me, a senior. When I realized that I liked this sunny, cheerful senior, he already had someone by his side. I could tell that Jack loved her deeply, and for that, I could only silently wish them well. Because of the upbringing from the Liu family and my pride as April, I couldn't bring myself to snatch someone else's boyfriend. I could only secretly watch their happiness from the shadows, and in doing so, feel sorrow in my heart. Finally, the news came that they were going to get married. That night, I cried secretly in my bed, thinking to myself, let's just accept it. After attending their wedding, I'll try to let him go. But what I didn't expect was that Laura ran away from the wedding. When I heard the news, I was ecstatic. All the excitement turned into heartache when I saw Jack standing alone on the stage. So, I did the only rebellious thing I had ever done in my life. I found Jack, with a mix of excitement and nervousness, and told him what was on my mind. I said, it's okay that your bride ran away. I'll be your bride. I said I could complete the ceremony with him. At that moment, the wedding dress that had been secretly delivered was waiting at the door. As long as he agreed, I could put it on as quickly as possible and marry him. But I was rejected. I should have been heartbroken, but instead, I felt a sense of relief, because he said he didn't want to make me feel wronged. Not long after that, we confirmed our relationship. Little by little, we walked a long road together, withstanding everyone's criticism, and finally arrived at the engagement day. A few days before the engagement, I learned that Laura had returned to the country. I did everything I could to keep Jack from knowing, but to my surprise, she appeared at the engagement party and directly clashed with Jack. When I saw Jack lying on the ground in a sorry state, my heart almost stopped beating. At that moment, I didn't care who he liked anymore. I just wanted him to be alive and safe. Thankfully, it was just a false alarm. The engagement ceremony proceeded as planned, and I got what I wanted, but my heart still wasn't at ease. Finally, one day, Laura found me and told me about their bond, saying that they had a connection from past and present lives and even had a daughter together. She told me Jack loved her. Hearing those words, I felt my heart break. But so what? Jack is mine now. He loves me. I calmly poured the scalding coffee in front of me onto Laura's face, just like she had done to Jack back then. Before leaving, I heard Laura scream from the depths of her soul. April, you bitch. Jack is my husband. Hearing that, I just found it laughable. Your husband? Are you sure about that?